Good morning. I'm Councillor Jennifer McKelvey. I'm Chair of Scarborough Community Council. I will be chairing today's meeting. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, so I will call meeting 23 to order. Welcome, everyone. Today's meeting is being held by video conference. City staff are also connecting to the meeting by video conference. As civic buildings remain closed, the public will continue to participate electronically, and you can watch the meeting streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. I ask everyone for their patience with any delays and technical issues. The clerk staff have connected all registered speakers to the meeting by audio. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Scarborough Community Council page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Clerk's IT staff will be available to assist members with their devices. I would like to remind staff to keep their mics muted and their videos turned off unless they need to answer questions or speak to committee. This will make sure that it is easier for me as chair and for those watching on YouTube to observe the members as they participate in the debate and vote on items. Members, please keep your mic muted unless you wish to speak to staff or ask a question or speak to an item, and ensure your video is always turned on. As part of each agenda item, I will ask members to raise their hand or unmute their mic if they wish to question staff or speak. I will then create a speakers list and I will call on members when it is their turn to speak. When voting on an item or a motion, I ask members to ensure they turn on their video and raise their hand to indicate their vote. Members, I want to remind you that you must still submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at scc@toronto.ca to help with motions. Although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, the committee would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Before we begin the meeting, I would like to acknowledge that today marks the third anniversary of the Yonge Street tragedy, which claimed 10 lives and injured 16 others. I would like to ask everyone to please join me in observing a moment of silence. Thank you. We will now move forward with the business of the meeting. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you have, please raise your hand and unmute your mic and indicate the nature of the interest. Seeing none, we have a motion of the minutes from our last meeting on February 26, 2021. Councillor Lai, all those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. I understand from the clerk that we have two pieces of new business. Can I please have a motion to add those to the agenda? Councillor Ainsley, all those in favor? They are now posted on CMP so that you can have a look at those two items, and we'll vote on them at the end so you have enough time to look them over. Before we get started with the items on the agenda, I wanted to inform the committee and meeting participants that the city encountered a citywide geospatial software problem that resulted in owners of lands not receiving a legislatively required notice on the following two agenda items. SC 23.1 Final Report 2180 Lawrence Avenue East Zoning Amendment. The Scarborough Community Council cannot hold the public meetings on the zoning bylaw amendments today, and the item will be withdrawn from the agenda. I will also be asking for a motion to withdraw the item during the agenda rundown. As a result, public speakers will not be heard today, and the item cannot be debated by committee. The item will be placed on the May 18th, 2021 Scarborough Community Council agenda, and a new notice of public meeting will be sent out in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. Anyone who has already registered to speak on these items, I don't think there's any, I'm confirming. Nobody was registered, but additional speakers can still continue to register for the May 18th. Written submissions on the items will be moved forward to the May 18th meeting. Thank you. We can now go through the items. The first item then again is SC 23.1, Final Report 2180, Lawrence Avenue East Zoning Amendments, Ward 21. Can I have a motion to withdraw?
I'll move that motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. All those in favor? Okay, that item is withdrawn. SC 23.2, 1744 to 1750 Ellesmere Road, Class 4 Noise Area Classification, Ward 24.
It's Councillor Ames. I'll move the recommendations.
Okay, Councillor Ainsley is moving recommendations. All those in favor? Those opposed? That item carries. SC 23.3, intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, 3315 Midland Avenue, Ward 23. Councillor Lai, I will hold as there is one speaker.
Yes, please, Madam Chair.
SC 23.4, inclusion on the City of Toronto's Heritage Register, intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, alterations to a heritage property and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement, 2685 Kingston Road, Ward 20. This is in Councillor Crawford's area.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I will move the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? That item carries. SC 23.5, preliminary report 672 to 676 Birchmount Road, zoning amendment application, Ward 20.
I have an amendment to expand the notification area on this item.
Okay, is it prepared and we can move it now?
Yep.
Okay.
300 meters instead of the 120.
Okay. When the screen moves back, we can vote on the, we'll vote on the amendment first. All those in favor? On the item as amended, all those in favor? That item carries. SC 23.6, preliminary report 1891 Eglinton Avenue East, zoning amendment and draft plan of subdivision applications, Ward 20.
I will move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? That item carries. SC 23.7, preliminary report 2683 Lawrence Avenue East, zoning amendment application, Ward 21. Councillor Thompson, I understand you'd like to hold this for a presentation?
Yes, Madam Chair.
SC 23.8, preliminary report 4415 to 4419 and 4421 Shepherd Avenue East, zoning bylaw amendment, Ward 23.
Madam Chair, I have an amendment.
Okay, thank
Just
you. We'll
for
display.
the quick one. Can clerk please put on the screen? Just the boundary as well. Just to change from 120 meters to the area bound by Highway 401 to the south, Huntingwood Drive to the north, Midland Avenue to the west, and McCowan Road to the east. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lai. All those in favor of the amendment? All those in favor of the item as amended? That item carries.
Thank you.
SC 23.9, preliminary report 3585 to 3595 St. Clair Avenue East, official plan amendment, zoning amendment application in 411 to 415 Kennedy Road / 636 to 646 Danforth Road, zoning amendment, Ward 20.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have an amendment to expand the notification area. I won't read it, but it's a bit long, but it's just to expand the area.
Okay, thank you. When the screen moves back, we can vote. All those in favor of the amendment? All those in favor of the item as amended? That item carries. SC 23.10, request for directions 860 Pharmacy Avenue, 9 to 23 and 32 to 40 Craigton Drive and 1 Renock Street, official plan amendment application, Ward 21.
I'm just waiting for you to call my name, Speaker.
Oh, sorry.
Madam Chair.
Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Thank you. It's early. I'd like to move the planning staff recommendations, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of staff recommendations? Any opposed? Seeing none, that item carries. SC 23.11, request for directions 1960 Eglinton Avenue East, official plan amendment application. Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Madam Chair, I will move the staff recommendation. Thank you. It's getting my exercise this morning.
Excellent. All those in favor of the item, that item carries. SC 2312, request for fence exemption and waiving a fee, 25 Conference Boulevard, Ward 25. There is a speaker on this and it's a timed item, so I will hold it. SC 2313 residential demolition application 1 Midland Avenue, Ward 20, Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. I'll move recommendation number 3 with conditions.
Do we display? There we go. Great.
There we go.
Okay, all those in favor? That item carries. SC 2314 residential demolition application 3686 to 3688 St. Clair Avenue East, Ward 20, Councillor Crawford.
Again, same recommendation, 3 with conditions.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? That item carries. SC 2315 residential demolition application 83 Fishley Drive, Ward 20, Councillor Crawford.
One more time, approve the demolition with conditions, number 3.
Okay, all those in favor? SC 2316 residential demolition application 276 Scarborough Golf Club Road, Ward 25, Councillor Ainsley.
I'll be moving recommendation number 3, please.
Thank you. All those in favor? SC 23.17 residential demolition application 278 Scarborough Golf Club Road, Ward 24, Councillor Ainsley.
I'm moving recommendation number 3.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Great. SC 2318 residential demolition application 461 Guildwood Parkway, Ward 23, Councillor Ainsley.
I'm moving recommendation number 3.
Okay, all those in favor? Carries. SC 2319 residential demolition application 463 Guildwood Parkway, Ward 24, Councillor Ainsley.
Not to break the trend that Councillor Crawford and I started, I'll move recommendation number 3.
Okay. And thank you. All those in favor? That item carries. SC 2320 designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes 29 to 117 Jolly Way, odd numbers inclusive, 110 to 150 Cleanside Road, and 1395 Tapscott Road. This is in Ward 20, Ward 21, Ward 23, Councillors Lai, Thompson, and we're missing one on here. Oh, Lai, Thompson, and Crawford. There we go. Councillor Thompson? Moving staff recommendations.
I'm just going to agree on my colleagues because everything is being done in 3s here. So we have 3 Migos confirming, I think. So we'll all have our hands up. And thank
Okay.
you, Councillor Ainsley and Crawford, for the 3s on this wonderful Friday.
Okay, there we go. So thank you. That
Unity at Scarborough Community Council.
That item carries. SC 23.21 parking amendment, Silvio Avenue, Ward 20, Councillor Crawford.
I'll move staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? That item carries. SC 2322 parking amendments, Kingston Road between Queensbury Avenue and Audrey Avenue, Ward 20, Councillor Crawford.
I will move staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? That item carries. SC 2323 always stop control Droxford Avenue and Surrey Avenue, Ward 21. Sorry, Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Madam
The
Madam
21
Chair,
trips me up for some reason. I don't know why.
It needs to be 3. It's 23,
Yeah.
I guess. And Councillor Lai against there. I will hold that for now. I have some questions of staff, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. SC 2324 turn prohibitions, Midland Avenue and Lockheed Avenue, Ward 22, Ward 23. So that's Councillors Mantis and Councillors Lai.
Madam Chair, to move staff recommendations.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, staff recs? That item carries. SC 2325 U-turn prohibitions, Lockheed Avenue, Ward 22, Councillor Mantis.
Madam Chair, I would like to move staff recommendations.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? That item carries. That brings us to SC 2326, construction staging area 10 to 20 Meadow Glen Place, Ward 24. Councillor Ainsley.
Madam Chair, I'm going to move the recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? SC 23.27, installation of pedestrian sidewalk on Falaise Road. Councillor Ainsley, I will hold this in your name as there is a speaker.
Yep.
SC 2328, pedestrian crossing Morris Road in Euclid. I will hold in my name as there are two speakers. SC 2329, removal of on-street accessible parking, Red River Crescent, Ward 25. I'm prepared to move staff recommendations. All those in favor? That carries. SC 2330, Vision Zero Road Safety Plan, right turn on red prohibition, Scarborough, Ward 21, Ward 22. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Mantis.
Speaker, I'm going to support the staff recommendations and just thank the staff and Barbara Gray's leadership for Vision Zero. I think this is the right thing to do. It ensures the safety of pedestrians in the area, at this area, at McCowan and Danforth and Eglinton. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Deputy Mayor Thompson's moved staff recommendations. All those in favor? That item carries. That brings us to the two new items. We can hold them till later, or did everybody have a chance to look at them? You're good? Okay, so the first one was S3 23.31, safety improvements and sound mitigation on Highway 2A. This is just a request in putting in for some additional study. So I'll move this. All those in favor? That item carries. SC 2332, Councillor Ainsley, would you like to introduce it? You're muted.
Thank you. And thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm moving this motion. It's called Engaging Scarborough Councillors in Business and Economic Development Initiatives. I'm asking our economic development staff to come back and make a presentation to Community Council on a number of initiatives that they've undertaken in Scarborough.
Okay, thank you. So all those in favor of this item? That item carries. Okay.
Thank you.
That brings us, thank you, Councillor Ainsley. That brings us back up to our timed item, which is, all right, let me get my bearings. SC 2312, request for fence exemption and waiving of fee, 25 Conference Boulevard. We do have one speaker, Ross Jackson. You have 5 minutes.
Good morning to all. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. My wife and I, Aileen, are here to answer any questions anybody has. Before I was going to make a short reading of some notes I had on this application. Would you like to hear what I have to say?
Sure.
Okay. For the homeowners applying for this exemption, we're requesting the city approve this type of fencing material we have chosen for the primary pool enclosure. The pictures that are in the agenda, which you may have seen, show that this fence is made of PVC. The portion that you see, it was made last year. We selected this material due to its low maintenance. It never needs painted, and the PVC does not decay. It is resistant to insect infestation and destruction. In our case, we have a red fire ant problem in our backyard, as many Scarborough residents do now. And in comparison to a pool chain link fence, which we had in 1999, it's still held in the backyard, we feel it exceeds the standards of for chain link. Reasons being, there is metal galvanized poles that are contained within the PVC fence posts, and as an assembly or provide a very strong, sturdy structure. It exceeds the requirements for depth of embedment of the metal poles into the ground. The metal galvanized poles are double the thickness of a chain link main post. The spacing of the poles are every 6 feet versus 6 to 8, 10 feet for a chain link fence. The fence panels are solid and not climbable, and they meet the 4 to 6 foot height requirement. The fence was previously inspected by the city, and it's confirmed with the manufacturer that the fence meets the Category 4 hurricane test for strength, which last year demonstrated during the winter. Overall, this fence is attractive and secure and a very durable product. I believe this material should be considered for addition for approved fencing material for a pool. We respectfully request the city and community councilors consider a positive outcome for our exemption request as soon as possible. The next part is just to talk about the fourth fencing that we've asked for, which from the rear door. As you may be aware, a delay occurred back in October in the process from the initial inspection to today's meeting, which was out of our control. Our meeting should have been heard back in January and February, and materials would have been ordered then. We are now in this late date, and our pool is scheduled to be installed in the next couple of weeks. It is not possible for now to have the fourth fencing installed by the time the pool is completed. We are asking for a time extension for the completion of the fourth fence only. We will have our perimeter fence locked, have no children living on the premises, have purchased a safety cover that can be walked on, and have a lock installed 5 feet high on our back door. We are asking for this extension of time due to this unfortunate late start. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you for your deputation, and then thank you. I know you've had delays with getting things pushed through the city. Can we follow? I wasn't aware of this fourth issue that you have in a delay on something, so I'll have my staff reach out to you today. Today, I know it's on the existing fence and the exemption, so we'll follow up with you on that additional issue later today.
Thanks very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Any other questions of the deputant? Okay, seeing none, anyone to speak? Or sorry, any questions of staff? Okay, anyone to speak to the item? Okay, thank you. I'm prepared to speak just to move staff recommendations 2 and 3. This has been an ongoing issue for the resident. There's been no complaints from the neighbors. They're all quite happy. And so on that basis, I will move staff recs 2 and 3. All those in favor? That item carries. Okay, thank you. That brings us back to our regularly scheduled agenda.
Sorry for the interruption, Madam Chair. We do just need an item as amended on that item, please.
Oh, okay. I thought I just had to move 2. Okay, so I'll move staff 2 and 3. We accepted those, and now motion as amended. All those in favor? Okay, that item carries. Back to our regularly scheduled program. That brings us to item 23.3, intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, 3315 Midland Avenue. We have one speaker, Jane McFarland. Are you on the line?
Good morning. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you for joining us. You have 5 minutes.
Great. Thanks so much, Madam Chair. Jane McFarland, I'm a planner with Weston Consulting. I previously spoke before Community Council on February 23rd on behalf of the property owner of 3315 Midland Avenue. Previously, at the February 23rd Community Council meeting, I had asked and supported a motion to defer this item to today's Community Council meeting. And my office has previously made several requests to defer this item dating back to 2018. By way of a little bit of summary, the basis behind our request to defer this item were to allow for such time for the owner's development team to make a development application on the subject property and to allow us some time to work out some of the discrepancies and errors that we had noticed in the staff report, as well as the differences of heritage research with staff. So today, I'd like to provide a little bit of an update to Community Council and announce that we have made a development application on the property since the February meeting. This application does support maintaining the farmhouse in situ and proposes a restoration and conservation plan for that farmhouse. We have also met with staff twice since the end of February to express our concerns about the staff report and the proposed designation bylaw. At this point, I believe we do have a mutual agreement with staff that acknowledges, although we differ on some of the facts and the research in the staff report, that staff are generally in agreement with our proposed repair, restoration, and conservation of the farmhouse that we have proposed as a part of our redevelopment of the property. I'd like to just point out again for the records that my clients do not wish to demolish the farmhouse, which is still stated in the staff report and the supplementary staff report. My client, the property owner, is not opposed to this heritage designation, and we do support the heritage protection of the farmhouse as it is demonstrated in our seriousness through the development application that we made in April of this year. My clients, the property owner, and I would like to thank Councillor Lai and her office for assisting with discussions with ourselves and with staff and helping us to meet and negotiate with staff prior to this meeting today. In addition, I'd like to thank Scarborough Community Council for allowing myself and my office and my clients to defer this item so many times since 2018. And we would like to say that we look forward to working with staff on a conservation plan and our development applications as they proceed forward. That concludes my remarks before Community Council today, and I'm here to respond to any questions that Community Council may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the deputant? Councillor Lai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Jane, for coming up with the development application. I think everybody works quite hard on doing that, and I really appreciate everybody's effort. I just wanted to ask, just to help me understand a little bit in your concise language of what area of disagreement remains at this point in time. I probably will be asking the same question of staff, but just want to understand it a little bit better.
Certainly, through the chair to Councillor Lai, in my understanding as a planner, not as a heritage expert, there are some slight disagreements that were conducted between our heritage consultants research and the city's heritage consultants research. And it's largely with respect to the date of construction, which is a little bit unknown. Sometimes these items cannot be dated precisely, as well as the constructor of the farmhouse. The way I understand it, Councillor Lai and Community Council, is that we're differing with staff by about 10 to 15 years. And how that impacts what we've done is really all our work that has gone towards repairing and restoring the farmhouse, as well as the design of the proposed townhouses as part of our development application, is based on a more mid-century design versus a late 19th century design. Without getting into the details, we've discussed this with staff at some length, and there's an understanding that designs change throughout time, but that they all don't change at the exact same time. So, for instance, houses can be constructed, a little bit later or a little bit earlier in a certain style. And the key understanding that we have is that the proposed or the farmhouse currently is more consistent with a mid-century design as opposed to a late. I hope I explained that with some understanding, Councillor.
Well, so does it mean that it is about the cost of the restoration that is going to be impacting the applicant? Is it? I just wanted to kind of understand a little bit better.
Sure. So, through the chair, the cost, I don't exactly know if there's a difference in cost between restorating in a mid-century design versus a late. However, we are the applicant team, the architect and the heritage consultant have based all their work that we've undertaken for the last 2 to even longer, 3 years, based on the research that our heritage consultant has provided us, which was a mid-century design. So our concern was that if we get too far in this process, that all the work we've undertaken and that the owner has paid for would have to possibly be redone in some time in the future, should staff and our team not get on the same page about what the adequate or what a suitable proposed redesign would be. So it's not so much about the payment for that, but the work, the time, the effort, which is quite substantial because of the foundations of this farmhouse that we've undertaken would possibly have to be redone. And that's quite a cost and quite some time.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Thompson, sorry, Deputy Mayor Thompson, go ahead.
Michael. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Through you to our speaker, it's not really clear to me through your response to Councillor Lai. I get the difference, as you mentioned it, in terms of mid-century design and a late. So are you saying to us then that if it was a mid-century design versus a later design, that as part of your client's concern, there would be the cost differential would be so much that it would be problematic for your client to proceed with respect to the development at this location?
Through the chair, back to Deputy Mayor. No, forgive me for the confusion. Heritage.
No problem. I just wanted to have clarity if I could. Thank you.
Pardon me?
No, I was just saying I just wanted to have clarity. I said no problem with respect to
exactly. So there's the problem being, there is the concern about having accuracy of heritage designation, right? And the reason you undertake a designation is to protect the cultural integrity. And it's important from the historians to get that correct. That's first and foremost. Secondly, the work that we've undertaken previously is based on a mid-century design. And should staff and our team not be aligned on what we're proposing for conservation, there would be the potential that we would have to redo the past 3 years of work. And that's time and effort. So the owner is prepared to put money in to restoring and repairing the farmhouse. And they've done that, and they're committed to what the heritage consultant has told them that they have hired. We wanted to ensure that the city and our heritage consultant were aligned in what that restoration and protection was, that this work would not have to be redone, which is more time, effort, and would delay and cost the owner more money.
Okay, that's very clear to me now. Thank you very much. And thank you for your patience. Obviously, there's been a lot of patience required, because I know this matter has come to us, as you pointed out, on numerous occasions. So thank you very much for that. That's very helpful to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Are there any additional questions for the deputants? Okay, seeing none. Questions of staff? Councillor Lai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question to heritage staff about the applicant has expressed that they do not object to the designation, but they do have some concern with the statement of significance. Can you elaborate on some of those differences, please?
Through the chair, I hope you can hear me. Thank you very much. I am Joseph Muller. I'm the program manager with Heritage Planning for the City of Toronto. Yes, and this has been discussed a fair bit. So the differences are, I think, are minor and more technical than anything else. We don't disagree with the description of the building itself as being typical of mid-century design, so mid-19th century design. But based on our research in terms of the potential date of construction, we go on land taxation and ownership records and census material. And so we make what is our best guess, essentially, because we can't give exact construction dates. But our estimate was 1875, circa, which has some implications on the ownership. But apart from some associative value there, in all practical terms, it doesn't change that the building is what it is, and that we would fully support the conservation and restoration as is being proposed, because the building is what it is, and we wouldn't want to make it look like something that it isn't. So hopefully that clarifies terms. So I guess the only real tension that we saw was where there's also an ability or a pattern of dating buildings based on their architectural style, so based on a date range, so mid-century. But within that range, you can have a variety of structures built, and this, I think, we've interpreted as a late construction of the mid-century style. So it's sort of the terminus of that pattern being used, in the same way that building style change here, and sometimes people are on the cutting edge of design and want to be right on the newest and latest and greatest, and some would like to use a more traditional style. So I think in this case, this is just a later example of mid-century, mid-19th century style. So again, we support the applicant on their proposed restoration and applaud them on incorporating and conserving the structure within their redevelopment plan.
Thank you. My next question would be for planning staff. How does this designation impact the application?
Madam Chair, it's Paul Zuliani. I'm going to direct that question to Christian Ventresca.
Thank you, and Madam Chair, to Councillor Lai. The designation of the property can proceed today, and through the review of the development application, we can work out some of these matters that Joe and the speaker were alluding to in terms of conservation. The application is just recently submitted. It's waiting for some final touches before being circulated, but I can confirm it does retain the farmhouse in situ, with suitable landscape buffering and built form separation to the new development. Looks like a lot of the recommendations from the pre-application conversations have been taken under advisement by the applicant, and it looks like what we were expecting. So the designation itself, in terms of the tailoring of how much of the site can be altered and the separation and buffers, can be worked out with heritage planning staff through the application review, such that the alteration permits, which is ultimately alteration of the site, not alteration of the building, which is ultimately what is issued at the end, can reflect all of these, again, as Joe mentioned, technical issues that are still being worked through.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Those are my questions.
Brad Thompson, questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we are talking about designation and heritage and so on, and the farmhouse and mid-century, late century. Who will own the farmhouse when all this is done and all of this process is completed? And what will the farmhouse be used for?
Sorry, through the chair to the deputy mayor, I'll begin, and maybe Joe can supplement my response. But as it stands right now, it looks like it's being reserved potentially for either an office space or a separate entity from a townhouse complex, which will sort of lie to the south of the project. in terms of tenure and ownership, that kind of gets worked out again through the application process, where the lands could be severed off from the townhouse condominium, could form part of the townhouse condominium as its own unit. But we've had some discussions. I know that there is an existing daycare facility on the lands which is being relocated. I'm not sure if the existing farmhouse is appropriate to bring the daycare back into. There's obviously, you know, changes that would be necessary to be a daycare that may not fit the heritage conservation plan, but it's conversations that are ongoing and that will come up through the review process. If my colleague in heritage planning had anything to add to that, I can yield the floor to him.
Through the chair, thanks very much, Christian. You've covered that pretty much entirely for me. Thank you. My only observation is that heritage planning is principally concerned with the structures and not what their adaptive reuse may be. So we applaud, again, we applaud and appreciate adaptive reuse, but don't have much concerns other than how they might impact the heritage fabric. Likewise with ownership.
Yeah, thank you very much for that comment, Joe, and I really appreciate that. But I think that for us going through these exercises, I think we should all have an understanding as to the effective nature as to why we're going through this exercise. So on the heritage piece, that's fantastic, but then we also have to look at functionality in terms of how that benefits the community in general. So that's the attempt in terms of trying to sort of, you know, through the question to get a greater sense of understanding, because we've spent a lot of time. We've heard from the applicant that they're spending a lot of money and they want to make sure that they clearly understand what they're doing in order to ensure the impact. And then the question is, what are we trying to protect? And that we're trying to protect, how will it actually have impact on our community and future generations? And I think that's part of what I wanted to understand. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, through the chair again, thank you very much. So, you know, Christian was suggesting some of the potential uses for it, and we, you know, in heritage planning, my typical analogy is that we try not to preserve these properties like a fly in amber. You know, adaptive reuse is the only way that they can be maintained sustainably. And so we, you know, with any proposed reuse or changes related to that reuse, for example, to make them more accessible, to make them in accordance with fire regs and such, you know, we work with the owners and applicants to ensure that we can, you know, that they can move forward with a functional building. Because you know, we're not trying to make these museums. We're trying to make them functional parts of the living community.
Right. Thank you very much. It's very helpful to both of you for responding to my questions. So thank you, Christine, and thank you, Joe. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions for staff? Anyone to speak to the item? Councillor Lai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a motion. If the clerk could please post it up on the screen. Well, this is just the motion is actually is according to a result of the supplementary report, and I would like to start by thanking the staff, heritage staff, Joe and Christian from planning. We've worked very hard to get the application up to where we are today, and I really like to commend Jane from the Western, the consultant for the applicant, and bring up all the concerns and working together with our city staff and heritage staff to come to where we are today. And this has been delayed for a few times, and even this is before my time. I just inherited this file, but I think going forward, I like to see the farmhouse, like Deputy Mayor Thompson, the farmhouse, you know, can be used for the community benefit purposes. It's very important that we make the highest and best use of what we have on site. And I know that because of there's some differences that we're doing, we still have to work very hard on this. And I look forward to the application and to hear about the consultation by our residents. So with all being said, I'd like to move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lai. Anyone else to speak on this item? Okay, we'll vote on the motion. All those in favor? All those opposed? That item carries. And on the item as amended, all those in favor? That's unanimous. The item carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lai. That brings us to item SC 23.7. Deputy Mayor Thompson has asked for a presentation on 2683 Lawrence Avenue East. Are staff ready for that?
Yes, it's Victor Gottwald. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you.
On. Wonderful. So my name's Victor Gottwald. I'm the manager of the Central Section in Community Planning in the Scarborough District. I'll be stepping in on behalf of Jeffrey Sinclair, who is unfortunately on an indefinite medical leave at this point. So this application at 2683 Lawrence Avenue proposes the redevelopment of the subject lands with a L-shaped 11-story mixed-use building comprising of 191 dwelling units, approximately 567 square meters of ground floor retail commercial space, and a floor space index of 2.3 times the area of the lot. A total of 195 parking spaces are proposed, and a total of 148 bicycle parking spaces are proposed. The development is located on the south side of Lawrence Avenue East, just east of Midland Avenue, approximately 700 or so meters from the Lawrence RT station, a little further west. The south side of Lawrence Avenue is generally characterized by single-story retail plazas. And then on the north side, there's a mix of building types, a low-scale mixed-use building, a mid-rise building, and a tall building. The lands themselves are designated mixed-use areas, which most of us know, provides for a broad range of commercial, residential, and institutional uses in single-use or in mixed-use buildings, and also includes permissions for parks, open spaces, and utilities. The lands themselves are zoned highway commercial in the Bendale Community Zoning Bylaw, which does not permit residential, but includes permissions for automobile service, sales, maintenance, professional and business offices, and the like. The site itself is zoned commercial residential. In the new citywide zoning bylaw, and permitted uses there includes dwelling units, retail stores, offices, and personal service shops. And lastly, the high-level issues that we are looking at currently, and again, this application is just in its preliminary stages, is ensuring conformity against the PPS and the growth plan, ensuring conformity with the official plan, including avenues policies, parkland policies, built form and public realm policies, and mixed-use area policies. And in particular, staff will be assessing the location and organization of the redevelopment to ensure fit into the existing and planned context, with particular regard to the open space at the rear, which is now being called the Meadowway, as well as an appropriate relationship to both the west and east of the subject site. That concludes my presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Or actually, sorry, I have just been made aware we have a deputant, so can we go to the deputant and then back to questions of staff? And then that way, if there's any questions from the deputation, we can put those in. Okay, thank you. So I believe the deputant is Rob McFarlane.
Hi, good morning.
Hi,
can you hear me?
I think we can hear you. Thank you for joining us. You have 5 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of committee. My name is Rob McFarlane. I represent the applicant. I'm a land use planner at Zelinka Priamo in the city of Toronto. We just wanted to make ourselves available if there are any questions of the applicant. I believe staff's presentation was a great summary of this application, and it's an exciting project that we're looking forward to consulting further with the community on. So again, just making myself available if there are any questions of us.
Thank you. Are there questions of the deputant? And questions of staff? I know Deputy Mayor Thompson, you had questions of staff. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through Mr. Gottwald, Vicar. So tell me, how many business? This site now, it has a number of independent business that are located on the site. Is that correct?
That's correct. Through the chair, that's correct. Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Do you know how many businesses there are there at this time? It's okay if you don't. I mean, I'm just curious.
I don't know, but I have the Google Maps up, Deputy Mayor. Let me just take a peek here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I think.
Right. And I just want to make sure that as part of your process and you know, this application, that we're not going to be losing the businesses that are on the major avenue, and that the jobs that are there, we're not going to lose them as we look at develop mixed-use development on this avenue. I just wanted to ensure that you would consider that as a concern that would come as you deal with this application. So I'm wondering whether or not you're also including economic development as part of the process, this planning process, in terms of consulting with them. That's my question.
So through the chair, Deputy Mayor, the applicant is proposing currently 567 square meters of ground floor retail, which basically extends along the front of the site. And just as a matter of course, as part of any development application, we always circulate to economic development, and we include them in our consultation for sure.
Yeah, I think I asked you that question, Mr. Gottwald, just to ensure that residents are aware, because some residents have raised the issue with me. Will we be losing, you know, the storefronts? Will we be losing business? And is this simply just a conversion to ensure that on the residential development on an avenue, but it would have an impact to the community? I just wanted to make sure that you are factoring that in terms of your consideration as part of the planning process.
Through the chair, again to you, Deputy Mayor, most definitely. That is something that we look at all mixed-use developments along avenues and always consider whether or not it's appropriate to replace the retail there. And we strive as best we can to achieve that. In not all instances can we do so, but it is an objective, obviously, of city planning and the city as a whole to kind of replace that commercial that is there. Maybe not, you know, floor space for floor space, but obviously we do our best to try to work with the applicants to do that.
Sure. And then can you, just my final question to you, Mr. Gottwald, the standard 120 meters distribution, do you think that's sufficient given the fact that this is, while it's not a major alteration with respect to the community, because we have a development that's just to the west of that is much more significant, but the questions I've asked you, I've asked of those folks. In fact, that application has been approved. And so I'm just wondering whether or not you think 120 meters is sufficient in terms of the notification area.
Through the chair again, I think it's a good question. I would say that is our standard. That being said, again, to the south is a hydroquarter, which is, again, I haven't measured the width of that hydroquarter, but you know, I hazard to guess it's kind of 300 plus meters or so, similar to the width in the Golden Mile, perhaps to the south. But again, that's up to you. Our standard is 120 meters.
Sure, thank you. Those are all my questions, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mr. Gottwald, for your response to my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions on this item? Anyone to speak to the item? Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a motion. I just ask staff to put that on the screen, please. It's really just to amend the notification area, and just to simply say that I'm looking forward to discussions on this application going forward. I think it's a great treatment for the avenue, and that as long as we are looking at ensuring that we replace the you know, the unit or the space that's available for commercial activities, and to incorporate you know, the mix component where we will have more people living on Lawrence Avenue and creating obviously needed housing that is needed in our community. In addition to that, we are going to see more eyes and ears in the community, sort of, that has a tendency to make it a lot safer. And I do think, because I have actually spoken with the owner of the site about sort of, you know, the quality of the types of products and so on. And this is someone that we know very well in the community that has a great interest in terms of ensuring that the community advance itself and so on. So I'm looking forward to the community consultations with members of the community, looking forward to this particular process. And I'm always very much inclined to accepting investment in our community and the transition, but the transition has to be managed and has to reflect the interest and the integrity of the community and so on. So I know staff and Mr. Gottwald and his team are certainly aware of that and so on. And just the final thing I'd like to say, Madam Chair, I'm hoping that Mr. Sinclair will come back very soon in terms of dealing with this file. So if he's listening, I don't know the extent of his leave, but hopefully that he'll be ready and able to come back to his duties and get well soon, Mr. Sinclair. So thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move that that amendment to the items.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other speakers, so we'll vote first on the amendment. All those in favor? We'll vote next on the motion as amended. All those in favor? That item carries. That brings us next to SC 23.23, always stop control, Druxford Avenue and Surrey Avenue. Oh, I know where that is. Ward 21, Deputy Mayor Thompson.
It's the old neighborhood.
Yes.
Madam Chair. Yes, so Madam Chair, I just wanted to ask staff some questions about this. Can you tell me, I mean, I saw the numbers and then it was like $12,000 to install I guess the post and there's no, and signage. Can you tell me what's involved with that, please? I mean, and always stop. So we would be putting, I guess, 8 posts in, or are you putting more? Can you tell me what's involved in terms of that cost to sort of make this area safer?
Certainly, thanks for the question. And through the chair, when we look at always stop controls now, we try and capture all costs associated with the installation. So that includes the signs, the pavement marking, including the crosswalk stop bars and tails. And it also includes any civil work that we might need to do to improve the pedestrian sidewalks in the area to provide appropriate ramping where there may not be appropriate ramps in place right now. So that's often the largest increase in cost that wasn't always captured in the past.
I see.
So where we might have seen, $1,500 or $2,000, when you start doing concrete work, it significantly increases the cost. That's work that we didn't always schedule right away with these types of improvements, but there's certainly a greater emphasis on that now, and we want to make sure that these things are always accessible once they're installed.
So you're showing us what the actual true cost and true value is with respect to implementing this traffic measure then?
That's correct.
Okay, because that's what really jumped out at me. Normally I would see these things at like $1,500, and all of a sudden I'm reading a report and it's like $12,000, and it was sort of glaring at me, and so that's why I wanted to ask this question. Mr. Dillon, you have been working as an expert in this area for how long?
25 years.
25 years, good. And I ask you this question, certainly just to try to draw from you, and I don't know if you actually prepare the report itself, but based on the proximity, because to the east, there's another always stop. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, about 90 meters to the east.
90 meters. So your expert opinion then, this addition, and you're not recommending it, but I wanted to understand the why as to why you're not recommending it. Is it that it's too close, that 90 meters is too close to the other intersection? And I've looked at the report and I've looked at the numbers and I've looked at it. If A doesn't meet the warrant, B doesn't meet the warrant. I've seen all of those. But just from a community safety perspective, is it your opinion that by not putting the always stop at this intersection, Druxford and Surrey, that the community will not be any less safe?
So I guess staff, myself, very rarely recommend the installation of unwarranted always stops. Always stops inherently do a great job at alternating right of way where there is demand on the side street. Where there isn't demand, you're just causing vehicles to stop essentially for very little reason or no reason. And when drivers perpetually see no reason to stop at an intersection, which is common at an unwarranted always stop location, they tend to not treat the stop as seriously as we would like them to. So at a location like this, where the side street volume, both vehicle and pedestrian, is very, very low, we would not support an all-way stop because drivers on the main street are very likely to, in the future, not respect that all-way stop, and you will likely see a lot of rolling stops, which can actually decrease safety at an intersection like this.
Okay, this is very helpful. And Mr. Dillon, this is the reason why I asked you for your, how long you've been doing this and so on, because I really wanted your expert opinion. Because I want people who are listening to this to hear from you, because I'm going to support the staff recommendation. I think that you're right. I am supporting the staff recommendation. That's why I just wanted to draw that out. So I may come back in the future if the situation changes, but I'm going to support the staff recommendation today. But I just wanted you to tell my community why the recommendation and sort of what is baked into that. And I think that you are right based on the work that's been done and the analysis and so on. And there's nothing even closely approximating meeting the warrants actually. So that's great. Thank you very much, Mr. Dillon, for your expert advice. Madam Chair, those are all the questions I had. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone speak to the item?
Chair, I will thank you. Just based on the expert opinion of Mr. Dillon, who I have great respect for, I think we all do. We do a lot of work with him, and I'm intimately aware of this intersection. I know that there is speeding that occurs on Surrey, and we have over the years tried to do a variety of things, which is the speed watch. We've got the police in there, trying to ensure that people follow the speed requirements and so on. And I do think that when I look at, the overall concern of safety in the community and knowing this area, I do think that it is not well traveled in as much as we would maybe, look at other areas and say, yes, we really do need to not agree with the staff. I think in this particular case, I'm going to agree with the staff. But as I said earlier, if the situation changes and warrants it, I would come back. And so I think, what price you put on safety, I don't think that there's a price, but I do think in this particular case, we have to be very mindful as well as to what the potential benefits would be in terms of putting, these always stops in and the alterations. And Mr. Dillon's point with respect to the cause and effect with respect to the intentions of drivers and what the potential impact of having these additional always signs in a major, sort of throughway street. And so reluctantly, and I agree with Mr. Dillon, and certainly based on his expertise. So I'm going to move the staff recommendation. And again, I say reluctantly, I agree with Mr. Dillon, not on his professional expertise or opinions, but just in fact that we all like to put these stop signs in because they supposedly provide that level of comfort. But that is a position that is not always correct. And so it's been validated based on the opinion of Mr. Dillon today. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Thompson is moving staff recs. All those in favor? And seeing none opposed, that item carries. That brings us to our next item, which is SC 23.27, installation of pedestrian sidewalk on Falaise Road. And we have a speaker, Scott Harrison. Are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you to everybody on council and to some of my former colleagues. Anyways, I'm speaking to this item because previous to Councillor Ainsley, I was working with David Soknacki. I've lived in this community for over 20 years, and it's always been an issue about pedestrian safety in the community. And working with Councillor Soknacki at the time, it was told to me that the community did not want sidewalks. So we worked together, and we've got a petition together back in, I think it was 2006, to look at traffic calming ways in the community. And one of those ways was traffic calming devices installed in the roadway. And I know they are installed in many areas of Scarborough and Toronto across the area. In 2006, the community came together in a petition presented to Councillor Saknaki at the time to install traffic calming devices. He in turn, in May, I believe it was, sent out another one, but didn't get a good response back because we had just done one. Then I think it was 2007 or 8, working with Councillor Ainsley at the time, he had no record of these previous tasks. We did another survey in 2007 and presented to Councillor Ainsley at the time. We had almost 100% participation, with almost 100% wanting the traffic calming devices and not sidewalks. Times have changed. The area is changing. There's a new development at the end of the street. Density is increased. There's a lot more pedestrian traffic. So a sidewalk, I think, is a good idea, but it doesn't stop the problem of pedestrian traffic, walking dogs, and so on and so forth, and the possibility of somebody getting hurt. And that was my issue back 20 years ago, is somebody was going to get hurt. In reading Councillor Ainsley's letter, somebody last year was struck and hurt on Falaise. And it has been an issue with cars parking on the street as the density is increased. We've now, through Councillor Ainsley's office and your, I believe, council there approved no overnight parking on the street. Still waiting for the signs, by the way. And in 2007, they were supposed to install a no U-turn sign on Kingston Road at Falaise. That never materialized. We're still waiting on that, but again, it was approved, I believe it was the last meeting or the meeting before that, to have that done again. I know I can't move a motion, but I would like council to reconsider the idea of traffic calming devices in the neighborhood. Now that you've painted the town red, so to speak, with the TTC lanes, coming through Warrensworth and Falaise and Rhoda is a shortcut for many people to get to Lawrence Avenue or miss the corner at Morningside and Kingston Road with traffic. When we come out of the pandemic, hopefully sooner than later, traffic's going to increase and traffic's going to be cumbersome in the community. Therefore, I'd like to ask sometime whenever that maybe another traffic study be done down the road to look at ways and means of reducing traffic through the community and slowing it down. There was traffic studies done in 2000, 2006, and 2007 that I'm aware of that showed the amount of traffic, the speed of the traffic. Speed limit sign was reduced from 50 to 40, I believe it was, a few years back. But it's an issue in the community. We've had the slow down, watch for children signs, but it's still, and again, by Paul's letter, somebody was still hit last year. So it is concerning. We've had 2 major accidents recently since the red lines have been, or the red lanes have been painted. One at the corner of Falaise and Kingston Road, and one at Warrensworth and Kingston Road. So we are having issues in the community around safety. I think a sidewalk, very expensive, will help, but I think we also need to look at ways to reduce and slow down the traffic use in the neighborhood. Again, this has been something that I've been working on for many, many years since I moved into the community, but I like to think I'm a little more proactive than reactive, and I hate to see somebody get hurt as somebody did last year walking down the road. That's about all I have to say. I hope you consider my idea. We can do another petition because it was presented back in 2007 and 2006, and according to a letter I received from Councillor Saknaki's office, at the time a petition of 25% was all that was required. When we had more than that, it still wasn't enough at the time. So I'd like to maybe have Councillor Ainsley relook at that in the next little while. That's all I've got to say for now. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions of the deputant? Councillor Ainsley.
Not so much a question, just thank you to Mr. Harrison for his continued work, both with his neighbors and to maintain the pedestrian safety in this community. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.
Questions of staff? I have a quick question of staff. Is staff here?
Yes, hi, Councillor.
Hi. Okay. So this is a request And you do have, a schedule for next year and things that need to come. So you can look at this seriously and see if you can figure it out. But if not, like, what happens then?
So through the chair, this location will be evaluated in consideration of our overall program, and it will be evaluated when it could possibly be fit in. There is a prioritization procedure for new sidewalks contained within the policy.
Okay. So you'll have a thorough look at this, but it sounds like we may not have guarantees until it's secured through the budget process.
Through the chair, that would be correct. There are no guarantees.
Okay, thank you. Crawford.
To just add to that, because the request or the recommendation B says that all required divisions will add this to their 2022 project list for completion in 2022. So my read of that is this has to be done by 2022 and could potentially bump some other priorities. So I just want to clarify what the intent of B is, because as I said in my reading, it sounds as if you got to do this regardless. It does have to go through a process, which I agree, Zach. I'm just curious from your perspective, will it still go through a priority process in the event that there are other priorities? I'm not saying this isn't, but it suggests that this is going to be done in 2022 regardless.
Through the chair, yes, it would still have to go through the prioritization process, and it would have to be evaluated both for technical feasibility, cost, and the ability to deliver as per the motion.
Okay, and again, not being picky here, but it says required divisions. So I mean, should we be changing this at all from your perspective to request divisions to add this to the project, or it's just the word require? Is whether or not, and maybe wordsmithing, I'm not sure. I just want to make sure that it's done appropriately according to what you have told me the process will be.
Through the chair, I believe the motion number 1 or item number 1 does as request transportation services and engineering, and those are sub bullets there.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, any additional questions of staff? Speakers on the item? Councillor Ainsley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not going to repeat all of the history that the Deputy Mr. Harrison outlined. I'm just asking for support of everyone on this requested staff. Flays Road, when I first got elected in 2006, had an older population. There weren't a lot of kids living on Flays between Kingston Road and Warnsworth. The demographics on the street are changing now. There's more children, and there's more seniors on the road, and there are no sidewalks. Pre-COVID, I had a lot of cut-through traffic on this community. I've had turn restrictions put in at Warnsworth and Morningside to reduce the amount of cut-through traffic during rush hour. I've had no parking regulations put in the evening and overnight. There's going to be no U-turn sign at Flays and Kingston Road. But there is a local high school, West Hill High School. A lot of kids shortcut through this community as well to get down to Kingston Road at lunchtime. They want to use the local McDonald's and other fast food restaurants. I've had a petition submitted by another resident asking for sidewalks in this community to protect everybody. So I'm trying to move this forward. As it was said earlier, you can't put a price on community safety or someone being hit. So I would like to support my residents in this community and have sidewalks put in. Thank you.
Anyone else to speak to the item? Deputy Mayor Thompson?
Just hoping to vote.
Okay, you were early on the hands. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. All right.
Sorry, Madam
I like
Chair.
the eagerness. Okay, that brings us to our last item. Sorry, what was that called?
Sorry, Madam Chair. I apologize for the interruption, but Councillor Ainsley, I think there was a technical amendment on that item we needed to move.
Okay, I can move the technical amendment.
So we'll vote on the amendment, which is saying it's going to City Council, and then on the item as amended again. Okay, great. That item now carries. That brings us to our last.
Thank you,
item
everyone.
Of today, 2328 pedestrian crossing Moorish Road and Euclid Avenue. I understand that we do have two deputants. The first one is Elaine Pereira. Elaine, are you on the line? You have 5 minutes.
I am, thank you. Good morning, my name is Elaine Pereira. I'm speaking as chair to the Catholic School Parent Council, as well as the chair to the Safety Transportation Subcommittee at Cardinal Leger Catholic School. The pedestrian crosswalk discussed today is near an intersection with only one stop sign, no traffic signals, and no pedestrian crossover. Our understanding is that without any of these provisions in place, this crosswalk has become exceedingly dangerous to cross. Reduced speeds of 40 kilometers per hour in a school zone does not deter all drivers from speeding past the school and through the crosswalk. Our parent council has heard from numerous parents about how perilous this crosswalk is and how many near misses there have been. This is why this item has reached your table today. An up-to-date traffic survey was completed at this intersection on March 30th. Our concern with the results of this study is that it does not accurately reflect the true number of students and drivers that utilize the crosswalk at this intersection. Due to COVID-19, 40% of our Cardinal Leger students are learning virtually, and many parents are working from home. In addition, the traffic study does not account for the pedestrians using the crosswalk outside of school hours. At this time, I'd also like to bring forward some comments from our principal, Peter Fitzpatrick, who was unable to obtain a speaker role at this meeting for extenuating reasons. This principal would be speaking on behalf of all the community stakeholders, in particular with special attention to students who do not have a voice in this regard. Mitigating factors are parking is limited at the school and around the school, and with significant bus congestion in the mornings, parents are forced to park on Euclid Avenue as well as on Moorish Road. This has caused increased congestion, confusion, and panic to get across Moorish Road, and often parents are in a rush to get to work. Multiple close calls have been witnessed, parents physically pulling back children around about to be struck, along with car tires screeching to a halt, avoiding tragedy. Exigent factors are the position of the crossing is just juxtaposed at Euclid Avenue and Moorish Road, adjacent to the school parking entrance for kids and ride and busing. This causes mass confusion for drivers as there are cars coming from multiple directions in addition to the parking lot, making quick decisions very difficult and confusing. Our school staff, along with many citizen drivers, have shared their concern around many close calls that nearly resulted in tragedy. Speaking of tragedy, 4 years ago this week, our community lost a 6-year-old boy killed after being hit by a car on Canmore Boulevard near Moorish Road, Moorish Public School, which is adjacent to our property. The loss is still visceral today for all of us in the community. The stakeholders at Cardinal Leger community are deeply invested in community safety, and at this time we feel this situation we're advocating for is extremely unsafe. We're unsure of what story the current traffic study data for this project would tell, but be rest assured the study does not weigh the mitigating and exigent factors that were brought forth today. We can't apply for a one-size-fits-all approach to the safety concern, as this may in fact put the lives of our children at risk. And we would be remiss if we did not indicate that we are deeply connected to this cause, and we will be advocating until we are assured our community is safe. That concludes the principal's comments. I ask for a favorable response, as the lives of our community members are priceless, and I implore you to consider taking a proactive approach to ensure that our children, their families, and the people that live in our community are well protected. Thanking City Council for the opportunity to advocate for the safety of all our members of the community.
Thank you for your deputation and joining us today. Are there any questions of the deputants? Okay, seeing none, our next deputant is Gary Tanuan, the trustee for the Toronto Catholic School Board. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, and good morning, Chair, Councillor McKelvey, and all the esteemed councillors for Scarborough community. I'm the trustee for the TCDSB on Ward 8 Scarborough for almost 9 years, and Highland Creek resident for more than 20 years. this important safety matter is near and dear to me, my family, and the community around us. Everything that Chair, CSPC Chair, Parent Council Chair Pereira has mentioned, and the principal as well, I've seen myself because I live less than a kilometer away, and in fact all my kids go to that school. I've been there and seen the actual situation wherein we have to park quite far just to get to the school, pick up our kids, and everything that she mentioned and the principal mentioned are exactly true. So based on that, I respectfully request Council to take into immediate consideration the crucial requirement of a pedestrian crossing protection installation at Morris Road and Euclid Avenue, similar to the one installed in front of Morris Public School. The subject crosswalk is directly in front of the Cardinal Ledge Catholic Elementary School. So to avoid going into the main arterial Ellesmere Road, which on the north side has no sidewalk, this crosswalk that is requested is heavily relied upon by students, parents, and residents, including our vulnerable seniors living east of Morris Road, to gain access to the Highland Creek Library, the only library in the area, convenience stores at Morris and Ellesmere, St. Joseph Church, and other community facilities. As Elaine has mentioned, on April 21, 4 years ago, as I wrote this letter, a 6-year-old kindergarten boy was fatally struck by a vehicle near the intersection of Canmore Boulevard and Half Moon Square on his way home from Morris Public School. Today, it brings back sad and painful memories to the very same neighborhood residents on the 4th anniversary of this tragic, grief-stricken incident. So right after that, the Scarborough Community Council adopted Bylaw 1376-2017 to install a new pedestrian crosswalk protection, which this location in front of Morris Public School on November 14, 4 years ago. That was enacted and passed by City Council on December 8, 2017. And that intersection there is not even half as busy as the one that we're talking about, because Morris Road connects to Ellesmere Road, which is a major arterial road in Scarborough, and also the Euclid Avenue is an expressway to the Morningside 401 exit. So drivers who are looking for a quick way to get there normally barrel through this road. So if we can do something about now to prevent another tragedy, I think that would be more than the cost. So I think the pedestrian crosswalk protection installation would be the most prudent, proactive approach rather than the reactive, after-the-fact approach in contemplating the merits of the crosswalk protection. And it also is in line with the Vision 0 2.0, and I'm going to read a quick thing here. It says, with the number of serious injury collisions remained relatively steady over the past decade, the number of fatal collisions in the past 5 years has seen a general increase compared to the previous 5 years. So the upward trend is most notably seen in pedestrian fatalities, and that big example was the one that happened, unfortunately, just around the corner of this intersection. So I appeal to the councillors to consider this very important public safety initiative. Thank you, Madam Chair, and all the councillors for kind consideration.
Thank you, Trustee Tanawan. Are there any questions for the deputants? Okay, thank you. Any questions of staff? Okay. I have a motion. City Council authorized the installation of a pedestrian crossover at Morris Road and Euclid Avenue. I'd like to thank all the school parent-teacher association, the trustee, the teachers, and the Highland Creek Association. They've all been quite vocal in advocating for this to happen. And I'm hopeful that I'll have your support for this here today to take this important step for community safety for our schools in front of our school zones. Anyone else to speak to the item? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. Councillor Inslee, speak.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, before we adjourn, I just had a point of personal privilege. I would like to acknowledge is retiring in a couple of weeks. Generally, we would have a better opportunity to thank them. But I just wanted to acknowledge Andrea for all of the work that she's done as one of our planners, for the advice and hard work that she's done in
Councillor Ainsley is breaking up for me. Is he breaking up for everybody else? Councillor Ainsley, would you mind maybe turning off your video and starting again?
As a community. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Would you like to start again? Because you cut out quite a bit at the beginning as well.
Okay. Thank you. I would just like to acknowledge Andrea Rainey, one of our community planners who is retiring in a couple of weeks. I'd like to thank her for all of her hard work and dedication and diligence over the years in her work, making Eastern Scarborough a much better place. And I hope she has a long, happy, and healthy retirement. Thank you.
That's right. Thank you, Councillor Ainsley, and thank you, Andrea, for your service. Seeing no additional business, that will move now to the introduction and consideration of bills. Ask the clerk to pull those up. That the Scarborough Community Council pass and declare as bylaws bills 313 to 316 prepared for April 23rd, 2021 meeting 23 of the Community Council. Councillor Ainsley, can I get you to move that? So moved. All those in favor? That item carries. That Scarborough Community Council pass and declare as a bylaw a confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Scarborough Community Council acting under delegated authority at the meeting 23 on April 23rd, 2021. Councillor Mantis, are you able to move that one? Okay, great. All those in favor? That item carries. Just confirming, do we have any others?
Confirming, Madam Chair, you have completed the business of today's meeting.
Okay, that's a wrap. Thank you so much, everybody. Super efficient. I have to say, this is the best committee for when you call the vote to actually put your hand up and make it visible. So, like, you win the prize. Best committee ever.
Great leadership, Madam Chair.
Okay, thanks so much. You guys are the best.
Thanks, everybody. Stay safe and well, and your families too.
Have a great weekend, everybody. All the best. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.